Hello again and welcome back to Garage Science. We're going to mess with the tool changer on the Tormach mill this time around. So what I've noticed is over the last couple years, it seems like I've had to bump up the pressure on the air compressor a couple PSI every few months. Otherwise I get the low air pressure warning on the Path Pilot, and eventually got to the point now where I still get that warning even as the air compressor hasn't reached its kick-on pressure to turn on and recharge, and so that kind of results in messing up my workflow a little bit. So this is the pressure switch that monitors the air pressure for that. It's a normally open and closes on low pressure, and so it's a so it's normally closed and then it opens right when it's above the set point. And so that feeds in through this connector to the ATC controller board. Let's zoom in here a little bit, you guys can see. So there's a electrical board here. This plugs into it. It's just a, like I said, 2 wires. And it's a pressure switch, not a pressure sensor. So like I said, they're pretty cheap. I'll put a link in the description for the part number I'm using. There should be a set screw in here that changes the setting, and I'll pull it off and show it to you guys here in a second. I'm still going to just replace it because it's pretty cheap, since it did already drift up. I used to be able to run the mill at 90 psi, right, the low end of the recommended range by Tormach, and not get that low pressure warning. And now I've got it at 120 psi, the highest point in their recommended pressure range, and it's giving me the warning. So there should be a set screw in there to change that setting. I'll mess with that, but we're also going to 3D print a new bracket here. There's these like zip tie hangers here and M4 screws that come in through the top, and I've taken this off once before. There's nuts on the bottom of the zip tie hangers. It is darn near impossible to screw all that back in, because clearly this was assembled with the ATC flipped over, which you know has gravity in your favor in terms of holding the nuts in place. And now that it's not inverted, it's really hard to screw it back together. So we're just going to make a new mount altogether on the 3D printer, and that should make messing with this thing in the future a little easier. So we'll cover all that. Like I said, this is a pretty simple little fix, and I'll show you what I'm doing. So this is the pressure switch, fresh out of the mill. These are the right there. There's one there. There's one there. That's what screws in with a nut on the bottom side to mount it to the automatic tool changer casing. And because it sits up like that, trying to reinstall this using these same brackets is a pain in the butt. So we're going to do something different as we replace this. We're going to use this guy, and we're going to use this pressure switch. So it's a SNS, put the link in the description. I don't know, it's $20 off of Amazon, so we'll see. It says it's rated for 1 million cycles, and this guy definitely didn't make it to 1 million cycles. So we'll try this one, see if it gets any better. This is also a normally open and normally closed. It's got normally open and normally closed contacts, and so anyways, so yeah, we'll mess with that. We're also gonna have to mess with the pressure setting to get it dialed in. But there's a set screw on the top here, like so. So that'll hold it in place, and then this will mount. It's got the M4 screws in the bottom, so there's no nut involved anymore. The whole thing will just sit up in the top of the carousel casing, or the ATC casing, and just screw directly in. So should work out a lot better. But we're gonna pull this apart. The other thing is this wire runs through the rubber boot here, and there's contact terminals on the back side. So pulling that back through and then like feeding it through there, that sounds like a royal pain. So I think these boots are are the same size. So we're just going to try and pull this off of here and put it on here, and we'll see if we can just do a 1-for-1 swap. But let's see if we can't get that done. Okay, so the wire's off. Able to keep everything intact, which is good. Let's pull this boot off. So there's 3 contacts on this one. So we'll be using the common and the normally open, so that way it will shut when the air pressure, or I should say, yeah, we'll use the. Gosh, now I'm confusing myself. The contacts have to be open in order for it to detect that pressure's fine. So we'll use the normally closed contact and the common, so that way when we're above the pressure set point, the contact will open, and then when pressure gets too low, it will shut. So normally closed and common. Yeah, don't get them mixed up. I guess it's nice to have the 3rd terminal there, but I don't know when I would ever use it. If you're not aware, that set screw in the back is what allows you to adjust the pressure set point, so I will have to dial that in. The old pressure switch has a set screw in the back also, so presumably since the set point was drifting, I could move that set screw and that should fix it. I don't know if it would, and there's actually markings on the side of this, so I didn't know that till just now. So this was the original Tormach. It's an NGS pressure switch, and it's got a pressure range from 0.1 to 1 megapascal, and it's the QPM 11-NC for normally closed. So that's the type of switch it is. Yeah, you know, I guess if you guys wanted to get the actual replacement, it's the NGS pressure switch. No idea if that's better than SNS. Someone in the comments can tell me. But we'll keep this guy as a backup in case the new pressure switch doesn't last very long. We can play with the set screw in the back and figure out how to make it work. So. There you go. So out with the old, in with the new. We will just put that guy back in the box. This will probably go in the mill cabinet. Alright, so we've got the pressure switch with the PTFE tape on it. So this is the connector we're going to go ahead and put on. So for a 1/4 inch outer diameter tube, that's what the mill uses, and 1/4 inch normal pipe thread female. This fitting's good for 150 psi, so plenty good enough for this application. Alright, we'll tighten that down with a wrench off camera, and then we can get to setting the pressure setting. Alright, so we're going to go ahead and set the pressure setting for the pressure switch. Got the multimeter hooked up to the connector, right, and it's set on the continuity setting, so it's going to give us an audible warning when the switch is actuated. So just as a reminder, we're connected to the common and the normally closed switch. So right now, basically, because the switch is open, right, the multimeter is not sounding, that means we've reached the pressure set point. So we're going to raise that set point by going clockwise on the set screw until the multimeter goes off, and that's going to mean basically low pressure. So we're set at 80 psi right now. That's what we're going to shoot for to detect low pressure. And so let's go ahead and tighten this. There it goes. So the multimeter's gone off. So what that tells the tool changer is that 80 psi is low pressure. So in And then in response, right, you should check your gauge, see that you're at 80 psi instead of 90. So we'll simulate the air compressor kicking on. We'll raise the pressure. We're at 85, 90, 100, just a hair over 100. So I think I'm gonna back this. Yeah, that's pretty close. We're gonna back this off a little bit. Let's see what kind of low pressure actuation we get. See what pressure it turns on at. So that was a little over 100 psi. That's still a little higher than I want it to be. Let's see when it actuates. So we're at 90, 80, 60. Yeah, seems a little on the low side. The there we go. So that was about 55 psi. I'm going to crank this up just a teeny tiny bit. Then we'll raise the pressure, see when it turns off at. Now, see, it turned off at about 70. So we'll crank it just a little more. It seems to be a little sensitive when you get close to the setting. Let's back it off and go down. Okay, so that was low pressure detected at about 65 psi, and then kicks off at about 70. Let's go up a little further. Go up just a tad further still. All right. Well, let's the kickoff. Okay, so that kicked off at 85 psi. Crank it just teeny tiny more. Okay, so that was about 90-95 psi is where it kicked back off. So let's see when it actuates again on low pressure. There we go. So that actuated at about 85 psi. So I like that set point. We're gonna go ahead and keep it like that and put it all back together. Alright, so we're putting this together in here. This is a good time to cover this. So when I bought the fitting for this, or when I bought the pressure switch, I bought the one that's a 1/4 inch NPT. It's actually not the thread that the original pressure switch used. It's like a 1/4 inch compression thread fitting, and so I'll put the link in the description for the one I bought, and then the one that should have the thread that actually matches the original Tormach threads, so you could use the original adapter and the original hose. But basically this adapter is longer than the original one, so there's not enough space here to route the hose directly down to the fitting on the air manifold. So there's a longer, like 8-inch or so piece of tubing that goes in, wraps around, and comes back, just because there's not a whole lot of space. So it shouldn't affect the performance at all, but it is something that I had to change. So you'll see that in the video description. So the PLA, this is printed in PLA, by the way. So the PLA is tapped. I'll put the file on Thingiverse and link that in the video description also. So if anyone wants to print it, it'll already be ready. It also holds it, like the wire's like barely long enough with the original install, and so I printed the bracket to hold it about 10 millimeters off the top of the casing, so that should give the wire just a little bit of relief from being pulled so hard. when I plug it in. I'll go ahead and plug that back in. There you go. Easy day. That's it. So there's a set screw here. Like if I ever needed to do anything with this, right, you could pull the bracket off from the screws on the top. You could also just loosen the set screw and pull the pressure switch out. So that's a better install. And hope Tormach does something like that in the future. But we'll go ahead and turn the mill on. Alright, so we're going to take this for a little test run and we'll store the current tool. Still works fine. I did check it with lowering the pressure, and it does detect low pressure at about 80-85 psi, so it works out pretty good. One thing I will note is that pretty sure one of the things that was contributing to the failure of the last pressure switch is that because there's not very much volume in the air lines for the mill itself, anytime you do any sort of pneumatic action, right, the regulator's got to kick in and restore pressure because it's got to supply all that air, right? Well, if pressure is dropping below that set point for the pressure switch, right, you're going to be actuating that pressure switch over and over and over and over and over anytime you do use the pneumatics for anything, which I don't know what the last pressure switch was rated for. The one I just put in says it's at least rated for 1,000,000 cycles. But if every time you do anything you're cycling that switch, you know, that's not great. One thing I did do before replacing the pressure switch was I did put a 5-gallon air tank on the mill side of the pressure regulator, so that way there's a bigger volume of air, so you're not constantly lowering the pressure in the line to supply the mill with air, and so that regulator's not having to work as hard. The pressure switch isn't going to cycle as much. The air tank I bought was like $45 a Tractor Supply. It's rated for 125 psi, so you know, on the low end for pressure rating, but like I said, it's plenty enough for the mill. Works great. But yeah, that's it. That's it for this video. That's it for this upgrade or repair, whatever you want to call it. Let me know what you guys think in the comments. And I'll be keeping my other Tormach pressure switch handy. You probably could just adjust the set point on the set screw if you're dealing with the same thing. I kind of didn't want to fudge around with it, and I didn't know what kind of you know, pressure switch Tormach was using, so I figured I'd go with a known quantity, known new pressure switch, and you know, like I said, they're $20, so they're not that expensive. Let me know what you guys think in the comments, and we'll see you next time.